The security guard at the United Center in Chicago almost didn't let him in. It was a random Tuesday afternoon in 1997, and 17-year-old Marcus Chen had just won a local high school tournament that made him believe he was untouchable. His friends had been hyping him up all week, calling him the next big thing, comparing his moves to the legends. Marcus had speed, he had handles, and most importantly, he had the kind of confidence that made him feel invincible. What he didn't have was any idea that in less than 30 minutes, he would come face to face with a reality that would shatter everything he thought he knew about basketball. Marcus had snuck into the practice facility through a side entrance, determined to shoot some hoops on a professional court. He wanted to feel what it was like to play where the greats played. The echo of his sneakers on the hardwood was the only sound in the massive empty arena until he heard another ball bouncing on the far end of the court. That's when he saw him. Number 23, Michael Jordan, alone. Practicing free throws with a focus so intense, it was like watching a surgeon perform an operation. For a moment, Marcus froze, but then his teenage arrogance kicked in. Instead of quietly leaving or respectfully observing from a distance, he walked onto the court, dribbling his ball loudly, making his presence impossible to ignore. Jordan glanced over, his eyes briefly assessing this skinny kid who had somehow wandered into his private practice session. Marcus saw his chance and took it. "You're Michael Jordan, right?" Marcus said, trying to sound casual despite his heart pounding like a drum. Jordan nodded slowly, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth. The kind of smile that people who knew him understood meant he was intrigued, amused, or both. "Yeah, that's me. And you are?" "Marcus Chen. I just won the city championship, averaged 32 points per game this season." Jordan's eyebrow raised slightly. "Impressive. What brings you here?" Marcus bounced the ball between his legs, showing off a bit of his handle. "I heard this is where the best play. Thought I'd come see if the legends are really as good as people say." The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Anyone else in that building would have recognized the dangerous territory Marcus had just entered. Michael Jordan was not just the best basketball player in the world at that moment. He was a competitor whose drive to prove himself was legendary, even when he had nothing left to prove. Jordan set his ball down on the sideline and walked toward the young player. His movements were calculated, relaxed, but there was an intensity in his eyes that should have warned Marcus to back down. "So you want to see if I'm really as good as people say? How about we make this interesting? 1-on-1, first to 11 points. You win, I'll give you my practice jersey. I win, you tell me exactly what you learned today." Marcus grinned. He had played countless games of street ball, dominated players much older than him, and his confidence was sky high. "Deal. But I have to warn you, I'm pretty quick." Jordan's smile widened just a fraction. "So I've heard." "Let's see it. If you're enjoying this story so far and want to see how this legendary encounter unfolds, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We're building a community of people who love real sports stories with real lessons. Drop a like on this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. They moved to a half court near the baseline. Jordan took the ball first, holding it casually at his hip. "You can have first possession. I insist." Marcus took the ball, feeling the weight of the moment but not the wisdom to understand what was about to happen. He started with a crossover, quick and tight, something that had embarrassed defenders all season long. But when he made his move, Jordan's hand was already there, anticipating the exact trajectory of the ball. Marcus felt the ball stripped from his hands so cleanly, it was like it had teleported. Jordan hadn't lunged, hadn't gambled. He had simply read Marcus like a book, written in large print. Jordan took 2 dribbles and rose up for a mid-range jumper. The release was so smooth, so fundamentally perfect, that Marcus barely had time to raise his hand. Swish. 1-0. Jordan passed the ball back to Marcus without a word. The young player felt his first twinge of concern, but pushed it down. He came at Jordan again, this time with a hesitation move that had worked countless times. Jordan didn't bite. In fact, he barely moved. When Marcus tried to drive past him, he found his path cut off by positioning so perfect it was like running into a wall that had appeared out of nowhere. Jordan stripped the ball again, and this time he drove to the basket. Marcus tried to stay in front of him, but it was like trying to guard a chess master who could see 5 moves ahead. Jordan went up for a layup that seemed simple, until you realized how he had manipulated Marcus's entire defensive stance with subtle body movements to create an uncontested shot. 2-0. This pattern repeated with variations that became increasingly demoralizing for Marcus. Every move he tried, every trick that had made him a champion at his level, was neutralized before it could develop. Jordan wasn't just beating him. He was dismantling every aspect of his game with surgical precision. When Marcus tried to use his speed, Jordan was already positioned where Marcus wanted to go. When Marcus attempted a shot, Jordan's contest was perfectly timed without fouling. When Marcus tried to post up, thinking he might use his youth and energy, Jordan's defensive positioning made him feel like he was trying to move a mountain. The score reached 11-0 in less than 8 minutes. Marcus hadn't scored a single point, not one. He stood there, hands on his knees, breathing heavily, not from physical exhaustion, but from the mental strain of being completely outplayed. Jordan held the ball, not showing off, not gloating. He walked over and sat on the baseline, gesturing for Marcus to join him. The young player, his ego now thoroughly deflated, sat down beside the greatest player in the world. "Want to know why you didn't score?" Jordan asked, his voice now carrying the tone of a teacher rather than a competitor. Marcus nodded, too humbled to speak. "You played with confidence, which is good. You have natural talent, which is even better. But you played without understanding. You relied on moves that worked against players who don't study the game the way I do." Jordan picked up a basketball and spun it on his finger. "Every single move you made I've seen 1,000 times. The crossover, the hesitation, the drive. I knew what you were going to do before you did it, because you're still thinking in patterns. Real basketball isn't about having 5 or 6 impressive moves. It's about understanding spacing, timing, and reading your opponent. Watch." Jordan stood up and demonstrated a simple jab step. "See this? It looks basic, right? But watch what it does to your defensive stance." He performed the move again in slow motion, and Marcus realized how his body had automatically shifted, creating the exact opening Jordan had exploited repeatedly during their game. Jordan continued, "You're telegraphing everything. When you're about to drive left, your left shoulder drops slightly. When you're going to shoot, you look at the rim first instead of keeping your eyes on multiple options. When you tried to post up, you didn't feel where my weight was positioned, so you pushed into my strength instead of attacking my weakness. These are things you don't learn by just playing. You learn them by studying, by watching, by understanding that basketball is as much mental as it is physical." Marcus listened, absorbing every word. His humiliation was transforming into something more valuable, genuine learning. But Jordan wasn't done. "The biggest lesson isn't about basketball technique," Jordan said, looking directly at Marcus. "It's about respect. You walked onto this court thinking you could challenge me based on winning a high school championship. That's not confidence, that's arrogance. Confidence is knowing your abilities. Arrogance is overestimating them. You have talent, kid. Real talent. But talent without humility is wasted because you'll never be open to learning what you don't know." Jordan stood up and extended his hand to help Marcus to his feet. "I'm going to tell you something that someone told me when I was young and cocky. There's always someone better. Always. Even when I became the best player in the league, I never stopped learning. I studied other players, I worked on weaknesses, I respected the game enough to know that the moment you think you've mastered it, the game will humble you. You came here today thinking you'd prove something. Instead, you learned something. That's actually a win if you're smart enough to see it." The two of them stood there in the quiet arena, the sun starting to set through the high windows, casting long shadows across the court. Marcus felt different. The cockiness that had carried him into this building had been replaced by something more substantial, a hunger to actually improve, to understand the depths of what he didn't know. "Mr. Ray—" "Jordan," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying genuine respect for the first time, "would you be willing to teach me? Just for today? Show me what I'm doing wrong?" Jordan looked at the kid for a long moment. He saw something familiar in those eyes, the same fire that had once burned in his own young heart, now tempered by a dose of reality. All right, we've got about 2 hours before the team arrives for practice. Let's see what we can do. What followed was a masterclass that Marcus would remember for the rest of his life. Jordan broke down every fundamental aspect of basketball that Marcus thought he had mastered. The footwork that creates separation, the importance of the triple threat position, how to read a defender's hip position to know which way they're vulnerable, how to use your offhand not just to dribble, but to feel where the defender's pressure is coming from, how to shoot with the same mechanics every single time so your muscle memory becomes automatic under pressure. But more than the technical skills, Jordan taught Marcus about the mental game. He explained how he studied opponents during warm-ups, watching their tendencies, noting which foot they favored, which direction they liked to move, whether they were left or right eye dominant. He talked about the importance of conditioning not just for endurance, but because fatigue makes cowards of everyone. And the fourth quarter is where champions are made. He demonstrated how to use subtle verbal communication during a game to get into an opponent's head without crossing into disrespect. Hey, if this story is inspiring you and making you think about your own approach to your craft, do me a favor right now. Pause for just 2 seconds and hit that like button. Leave a comment telling me what your biggest takeaway is so far. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We've got more incredible stories like this one coming your way. Your support means everything. Now let's get back to the story. Jordan made Marcus repeat drills until his form was correct. Not just good, but correct. He showed him the difference between a shot that goes in because of luck and a shot that goes in because of perfect repetition. He taught him that being able to make 10 shots in a row in practice means nothing if you can't make one shot when the game is tied and the clock is winding down. Pressure is what reveals true skill, not comfort, Jordan said. You practice until you can't get it wrong, not until you get it right once. As the practice session continued, something remarkable happened. Marcus started to understand not just what Jordan was teaching, but why it mattered. Each principle built on the previous one. The footwork improved his balance. Better balance improved his shot. A better shot made defenders play him tighter. Tighter defense created opportunities to drive. Everything was connected in a way his high school coach had never been able to articulate. 2 hours passed like 20 minutes. When the Bulls players started arriving for their scheduled practice, they found Michael Jordan working with some random kid, teaching him how to properly execute a pick and roll. Some of them smiled, recognizing the Jordan teaching mode they'd all experienced. Others were just curious about who this young player was that had somehow earned private instruction from the most competitive player in basketball. Jordan called Marcus over one final time as the arena started filling with players and staff. You showed up here today thinking you were going to challenge a legend. Instead, you got schooled. But you also did something smart. You listened. You learned. You put your ego aside and absorbed what I was teaching you. That takes character. A lot of people can't do that. They're so afraid of looking weak that they never become strong. He pulled out a practice jersey, the same one he'd promised if Marcus won. Even though Marcus had lost their game 11-0, Jordan handed it to him anyway. You didn't earn this by beating me. You earned it by being humble enough to learn. Take it. And every time you look at it, remember that being the best isn't about never losing. It's about learning from every experience, respecting the game, and never stopping your pursuit of improvement. Marcus took the jersey with trembling hands, his eyes wet with tears he was trying to hold back. Thank you, Mr. Jordan, for everything. Jordan nodded. One more thing. That championship you won? That high school title you're so proud of? That was your past. Don't live in it. Those 32 points per game. That was who you were. Focus on who you're becoming. The moment you start relying on past success is the moment you stop growing. Stay hungry, stay humble. And remember, there's levels to this game. You just moved up one today. Years later, Marcus Chen would go on to have a respectable college basketball career. He never made it to the NBA, but he became an exceptional coach, known for his emphasis on fundamentals and his ability to humble talented players who let their egos outgrow their abilities. In every gym where he coached, he kept that practice jersey framed on the wall, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. When interviewed about that day, Marcus would always tell the story with complete honesty. He never embellished or pretended he had scored points he didn't score. "I went in there thinking I was challenging a legend," he would say. "I left understanding that I hadn't even been playing the same game. Michael Jordan didn't just beat me that day. He rebuilt me. He showed me the difference between thinking you're good and actually understanding what greatness requires." The story spread through basketball circles not as a tale of humiliation, but as a testament to what can happen when arrogance meets mastery and chooses to become humility. It became a reminder that confidence should be built on a foundation of genuine skill and understanding, not just on beating people who don't know any better. Jordan, for his part, rarely spoke about that afternoon. When asked about it years later during an interview, he simply said, "I've had countless people try to challenge me over the years. Most of them just wanted to say they played against Michael Jordan. That kid was different. He came in cocky, sure, but when reality hit him, he didn't make excuses. He didn't get angry. He asked to learn. That's rare. That's the mindset that separates people who have potential from people who actually reach it." The encounter revealed something profound about both men. Marcus demonstrated that true strength isn't about never being wrong, but about how you respond when your limitations are exposed. He could have left that gym bitter and resentful, making excuses about why he lost. Instead, he transformed a humiliating defeat into the most valuable lesson of his basketball life. Jordan demonstrated that true mastery doesn't need to destroy to teach. He could have simply embarrassed Marcus and sent him away. Instead, he invested hours in genuinely helping a young player understand the game at a deeper level. He showed that the mark of a real champion isn't just how you compete, but how you lift others up, even after defeating them. The lessons from that day extended far beyond basketball. They spoke to a universal truth about mastery in any field. Whether you're an athlete, an artist, a business person, or a student, the principles remain the same. Respect those who came before you. Understand that confidence without competence is just noise. Be willing to have your ego checked because that's where real growth begins. Study your craft with the seriousness it deserves. And most importantly, never let past success become the ceiling of your future potential. Marcus learned that there are levels to everything in life. Just because you're the best in your immediate circle doesn't mean you've reached the top of the mountain. It might just mean you've climbed the first hill. The real champions are the ones who, after reaching a summit, look up and see more mountains to climb, rather than looking down and admiring how far they've come. Jordan's approach that day also revealed a crucial leadership principle. The strongest leaders are secure enough in their own abilities that they don't feel threatened by teaching others, even potential competitors. They understand that elevating others doesn't diminish themselves. In fact, it often reveals the true depth of their mastery, because only someone who truly understands something can break it down and teach it to others. Before we wrap up this incredible story, I want to ask you one more time. If this resonated with you, if you got value from this, hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell so you never miss our next story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message about humility and growth. And drop a comment below, telling me about a time when you got humbled and what you learned from it. Your engagement helps us reach more people with these powerful stories. Thank you for being part of this community. The story of Michael Jordan and Marcus Chen reminds us that greatness isn't just about talent. It's about the willingness to be perpetually uncomfortable, to constantly challenge yourself, and to remain a student even when you become a master. It's about understanding that every expert was once a beginner who refused to quit, and every master is a student who never stopped learning. The court may be where basketball is played, but the real game is played in the mind and the heart. It's about character, resilience, and the humility to know that no matter how good you are, you can always be better. That's the legacy of champions. Not just the trophies they win, but the lives they change and the lessons they pass on to the next generation. And on that Tuesday afternoon in Chicago, in an empty arena with just 2 players and a basketball, one of the greatest lessons in sports history was taught and learned. See you in the next video with more inspiring stories from the world of sports.